Hello again, folks, and welcome back to another podcast. It's part of your online class or in-person class if you're checking this out a little later. This is my reaction to The Weight of the Nation, parts 3 and 4. Part 3 really focused on children and hit on a lot of the problems in the food system and the barriers that we have. And part 4 focused on additional challenges in making systematic change. But it also featured many successful stories, communities at multiple levels, both individual success stories, school success stories, and then larger community and state level success stories. So I do think those are important to focus on. But I want to spend a few minutes going through some of my reactions to this particular series. Oops, excuse me while I get this sorted out. So, some telling quotes here. You see stories from kids, from young adults saying that this obesity is holding them back. And really that third quote there, that sometimes it's not a choice to be who you are, gets you to understand that it's not simply a problem of individual responsibility. There must be something we can be doing better. These are problems that we have made as a society, choices we've made to support particular types of food, particular industries, different types of education as opposed to physical education, different types of food as opposed to fresh local food. These are choices we've made, and those were logical choices at the time. They were not meant to cause this problem. However, now we have both the burden and the luxury of being educated about the problem. I think at the end of part 4 they bring up a very useful comparison, and that is the tobacco industry. In the 1950s and 60s, I know my parents were smoking. And it was pretty commonplace, and no one really thought there was any negative consequences of that. However, in the late 70s and early 80s, we started to figure this out. Like, you know what? Smoking causes cancer. Smoking causes people to die. So, should we be subsidizing the tobacco industry? Should we be legislating tobacco and smoking out of schools, out of public spaces? And you can see how far we've come. However, have some perspective and know that it took 20 to 30 to 40 years to get where we are. And just think about this, those of you who live in Morgantown, we just got smoke-free restaurants and bars within the last 3 months here in 2012, which is pretty embarrassing. But we just got to that, and we're talking about studies in the 1980s that showed tobacco and nicotine were causing problems. So it really now becomes a moral challenge. Like, what kind of environment do we owe our children? What type of school system are we going to put our kids in? So you need to now think a generation ahead. You may not have children of your own. You might have little brothers and sisters that are in the school system right now. What about your kids? What about your grandkids? If we don't do something, and something substantial, what society, what will the environment look like in that matter of years? I've been hitting on this pretty good now, and I don't mean to harp on it. A few of you have responded to your posts very specifically because I don't think you're getting it. To say that it's just people need to suck it up, pull up their bootstraps, do it, yes, that is part of it. However, shouldn't our public dollars, we all pay taxes. Soon, when you have full-time jobs, maybe some of you do already, you'll see how much tax money goes to the government. Don't we have some responsibility to use that money, or have a voice in how that money is used, to create communities and environments which improve my quality of life, not reduce it? So, as an example, my children are going to go to public school. So I obviously have a voice in what that school looks like. And after they go to that school, let's say kindergarten through grade 5, before they go into middle school, should they come out less healthy or not? Just think about it for a minute. I'm paying for that service. I'm subsidizing the school system. By the time my kid leaves elementary school in grade 5, should they be obese? Should they be addicted to sugar and garbage foods? Absolutely not. This is a a critical issue for me as my children are heading into the school system. So to blame or to point a finger to make this complex problem into a simple solution is inaccurate. And by doing that, we then don't have to make any action ourselves. Like, yes, those people, point our fingers, they're the ones with the problem. That's false. They have a role in it, but we have a role, and so does government. So I think they do a good job in the last piece of this series of bringing it all together, suggesting that it is not one thing. It's multiple forces coming together all at one time that created this tipping point that have caused the obesity rates to surge. And it all comes down to excess caloric intake. So they went through a very specific scenario of where are these calories coming from? How has our food system changed? So 600 more calories per day compared to 1970. Now, to give you a sense of that, 1 pound is equal to 3,500 calories. So that means we're taking in a pound more per week in food compared to 1970. And the majority of that is because we have access to it more easily. It's much more affordable, and it's right in front of our face. So it's a combination of products in your grocery store, accessibility of more convenient stores and Sheetses and all kinds of those type of places that are closer to your house. There's food in the pharmacy. There's food everywhere, mostly in boxes. It's all garbage. It's everywhere. So we now have, and also in drinks as well. And if they broke it down, okay, so 25% of these added calories comes from sugars, mostly from corn, high fructose corn syrup. That's not needed in your food, by the way. You ever looked in your yogurt? Check the yogurt you eat and see if it has high fructose corn syrup in it. Why does your yogurt have high fructose corn syrup in it? Just saying. What does high fructose corn syrup have to do with yogurt? 25% from added fats. That's usually from soybean oil. So you'll look in there, you can see soy products or soybean oil. And then 50% from other refined grains like unbleached flour, could be whole wheat flour, mostly from cornstarch again and wheat. It's a system that feeds upon itself. U.S. Department of Agriculture subsidizes all of these producers, and they're primarily industrialized farms. The meats we eat, many of those, if you get non-organic or the lower quality, they're fed cornstarch, wheat. They're fed a lot of these same products. So we have created an industrial system that produces a high volume of low nutritional quality food. So we've built a system that we've now outgrown, in my opinion. It doesn't provide us with a nutrient density. Now, in this big picture, they talk mostly about food because it's such a systematic problem. But let's not forget also that in the last 30 years, there's a great quote that you'll see in many places, we've engineered physical activity out of our daily lives. So there's small pieces. None of these things are to blame. Listen to me. Video games are not the answer. I played more video games as a child than any kid I knew in my entire neighborhood. However, I also played wiffle ball in the backyard, played sports every season, and didn't end up obese. Okay, so video games are not the problem. It's just part of the wave. So get a little bit less activity at work, so we have more people sitting at their desks. Kids are getting less activity at school. There's less than 10% of schools in the country that have daily physical activity in their phys ed. It's pretty pathetic. We can't do better than that. There's a lot of options for sedentary activities now. Phones and tablets and automatic things. Also, just one other element that restricts kids from going out and playing. You'll hear your parents, or maybe some of you had the experience as young children of just going to your neighborhood and play. There is a safety culture that in parents that a lot of will restrict people from letting their kids just run around and play. In some places, it's a real fear. In an urban environment, there is safety issues with violence, gang activity. In most places of the country, it's probably unfounded. There have been studies out there to suggest that the violence has not gotten worse. It's simply that the media exposure is so much higher that for every kid that's abducted, we hear about it nationally. Whereas 30 years ago, growing up in West Virginia, I would have never heard about a kid in Omaha, Nebraska being abducted. But sure enough, it's on CNN every single day, and it's on the front page. Okay, so it's created a culture of fear in parents that, okay, they're going to have to monitor their kids. They're not going to let them roam free. So let's not forget about that. I do want to touch a little bit on the cultural influence of capitalism and our government and special interests. I think the documentary shows some hearings there where they were trying to make changes to the school system and the food industry, and it just shows you how pervasive the problem is. I mean, we have issues everywhere, at home, at school, and our access and the system we have set up and the industries that are promoting food that is horrible for us, it's everywhere. And so it comes down to a battle of capitalism, not necessarily versus socialism, but simply versus a humanitarianism. So who is to benefit? Are we going to benefit society and the people and the health and the quality of life? Or are we concerned that every company in the country continues to show 10 and 12 and 15% returns on their money? So it comes to me a matter of profit versus people. And a lot of times, unfortunately, capitalism, the expectation of return on investment, drives decisions. So we allow companies to market food directly to our children with no consequences. But I would suggest, I wondered, I'm a full believer in freedom, right of speech, but do they have the right to promote unhealthy products to our impressionable children without any sort of penalty? Shouldn't it cost more? Shouldn't there be higher taxes on those foods? We must be able to do something here and hold those companies accountable. Again, General Mills, just because they make sugary cereals, they're not the problem. It's just another grain of sand on the beach. We got to get everybody to help out with this. At times it can seem completely overwhelming. However, everybody needs a seat at the table. One of the things I thought they did an excellent job of showing in the documentary is this idea of quality versus quantity. We have this system that provides convenience, low cost, low quality. Don't be fooled by advertisements that say premium, high quality. Those terms aren't regulated. You can just see from the example from the food system where the lobbyists won and got to claim pizza is a vegetable. Now, I'm sure almost all of you have had pizza at your school system, and you know in your heart that that is not a vegetable and by no means should count as a vegetable. By no means at all. It is far, I love pizza, probably one of my favorite foods in the world. But that would suggest then that if we got 4 to 5 servings of pizza every day, we would meet our fruit and vegetable criteria. That's insanity, by the way. Okay, quality and fresh fruits do cost more sometimes. However, as I've mentioned before, it is a total myth that eating healthy costs more. False. It's totally false, guys. You got to get your head wrapped around it. All you need to do is learn how to cook a few meals with fresh ingredients, and as long as you're cooking for 2 or 3 or 4 people or you're saving leftovers, it is cheaper and healthier. It's a great quote from Hippocrates, one of the oldest, you guys have probably all heard of the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take. So this is literally centuries old quote, that medicine be your food and let food be that medicine. That's the idea, is right now you can prevent it and pay for it right now. We spend a lot of money in my household on groceries. Fresh fruits, vegetables, good breads and grains, and a lot of other healthy options. We spend a lot of money on it. And really, I just see it as an investment. I might spend an extra $100, $200 a month getting the fresh fruits and vegetables into my system, into my kids' system. But how much am I saving in the long term? What's my quality of life like? So you have to see, we have to get past the present moment a little bit here. And my food tastes better than anything I get anywhere. So once you learn how to cook, restaurants are not so appealing. There's probably one restaurant in town, Morgantown, Richwood Grill, where I feel like, okay, they do some things that I can do. All right, but other than that, the food that I make at home is better than the food I get out, and it's light years beyond the food that I've eaten at fast food restaurants. I thought this was a nice follow-up point. They show this profit margin on soft drinks versus fresh fruits and vegetables. So I get that. So you Why do you see so much advertising for soft drinks? Because the profit margin's enormous. Absolutely enormous. They spend billions of dollars a year getting people to drink this stuff, and they make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So certainly, if you're trying to grow your company, you would sell soft drinks. You would not be sitting putting out there for advertising for fresh fruits and vegetables. So we need to flip that script a little bit and figure out a way around that issue. Or we need to regulate that and stop subsidizing and allow it to be $1. If you go to Europe, a can of Coke costs you €2, nearly $3. Water costs you about a third of that. So there are examples in other places that show a different way. I do also want to highlight poverty. It was brought out in the documentary series. It's not just that they have less money; they also are living in lower access areas, and so you're disproportionately exposed to obesogenic environments. So you're going to be in situations where you can't get fresh fruits and vegetables. You have access to corner stores and convenience stores that are cheaper, and you can't play as much. They have some great examples of that in Santa Ana, California, other places around the country. So we do need to understand that, listen, we're all in this together. And it's pretty embarrassing if we allow the poorest of our country to just get hammered by this system that we've created to make money for a few people. So what's the next step? I think we do need a little better international perspective from this. It was obviously very focused on the nation, our nation. But I would encourage you to seek out some information and figure out, or travel. I truly didn't get a great exposure to an understanding of the problem until I traveled internationally. We've been very lucky in my family and in my job to travel. I've been to, I think, 16 countries at last count. I've been on 4 continents. And, I can tell you, when you go to Europe and China and Australia and you come home, you have a different perspective on what you're seeing in the U.S., So I want to question our U.S. dominance. Are we still the strongest, fittest, smartest, and most innovative country? I'm not sure. Is this the best we can do to promote the quality of life for all Americans? Definitely not. And now I hope, that you're as frustrated with the state of affairs as I am after watching this series again. And you're motivated to do something. You don't need to change the world. All you need to do is change one person, one group, one school, one block, one community, one family member in your area that's right in your wheelhouse is something that you feel capable of doing. That's all you need to do. And if everyone did that, we would have tremendous momentum and we would start to turn this thing around. So do what you can within your sphere of influence and keep on rolling and inspire other people to do that. That's what I challenge you to do in this class, out of this class, in the next 5 years, and for the rest of your life. I hope you can meet that challenge. Enjoy the rest of your day.